Welcome to the Deep Dive, brought to you by Access Softtech, the premier provider of digital banking solutions. Today we're diving into something maybe a bit different at first glance. International finance and credit unions.
Yeah.
We're exploring a concept we've actually been researching ourselves quite a bit lately. It's this idea of the weaponized world economy. It's not just, a flashy term. It suggests America's central role in global finance is being used increasingly for political influence, basically controlling the money flow.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating about that is how this sort of dynamic naturally creates a pretty strong push for other countries to look for alternatives, entirely new financial systems.
Right.
And that raises some big questions, critical questions, really, for institutions you might not usually link with high global finance, like credit unions. So our goal today is kind of connect these dots for you, show how these big macro shifts could actually ripple down to your local financial institution.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. This idea of America's financial network as a tool for political influence, for control. We're talking more than just, say, standard economic sanctions here.
Oh, definitely.
It's the power to maybe freeze assets, block transactions, even cut off access to global payment systems like SWIFT.
Exactly.
It's weaponizing the dollar's position, really, and America's control over that key financial plumbing. That's a big shift in thinking about global power.
It really is. And if you step back and look at the bigger picture, this pressure, it encourages a global hunt for totally new ways to move money around, potentially outside the systems we know now. You can imagine nations wanting to bypass channels that might be, vulnerable to outside control. We're seeing hints of this already, different approaches popping up. It's almost like the financial world is sort of starting to fork into different paths.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting for credit unions, right? Because okay, they're generally not as deeply plugged into huge international finance like a Citi or a Chase, obviously.
Right, not on that scale.
But they absolutely have connections, both direct and indirect ties to these global systems. Think about your local credit union. Maybe one member is a small business importing goods.
Sure.
Or maybe a family sends money overseas regularly, remittances.
Very common.
Both those things often go through the exact same correspondent banking networks that could feel the effects of these global shifts.
Exactly. It's not maybe a direct hit today, but it's like a tremor, a growing tremor running through those foundational layers.
So that raises a pretty critical question then.
Yeah.
If these alternative financial networks really start to gain traction, how are credit unions going to handle the essentials? Compliance, things like KYC, know your customer.
Verifying identity, yeah.
OFAC rules, Office of Foreign Assets Control, avoiding sanctioned parties.
Crucial.
And anti-money laundering, AML protocols. These frameworks are built around the existing global structures. They depend on transparency, traceability.
That's the challenge. And we also have to wonder, could crypto assets be part of the answer for these alternatives? Is that the route some might take? And who would be pushing for these systems? Maybe nations like Russia, China, Iran. Countries that have, let's say, clear reasons to want ways around the traditional financial power structures.
That's a really interesting point, these alternative systems. But, how realistic is it? Can they truly challenge the dollar's deep, deep global roots, especially for smaller players like credit unions, who still need access to the wider global market for their members?
That's the big unknown, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's important to stress, this isn't about some immediate crisis hitting a credit union's day-to-day operations right now.
No, not an overnight thing.
But what does it mean for looking ahead, for future planning? This has to be on the list, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Right alongside other big changes like stablecoins, artificial intelligence. It's another one of those potential disruptions or opportunities, depending how you look at it. The main takeaway seems clear, though. The ground is shifting. You can't just ignore it.
Exactly. And ultimately, it just highlights the absolute need for foresight, for adaptability, particularly in finance. The financial world, even at the community level, isn't static. It never has been, really. Okay. It's about being agile, understanding these new developments, and planning for a future where the old assumptions about how money moves globally might not apply anymore. Those institutions, those players who don't change when change is needed, well, they'll inevitably get left behind. They won't be able to navigate these new global financial currents.
So, thinking about all this, what really stands out to you from this deep dive? How might these huge shifts in international finance actually shape the institutions you rely on day to day? And what questions does it raise for your own readiness, your own financial planning? It's worth keeping an eye on how these really big macro trends ripple downwards, because understanding them is definitely the first step towards adapting.